Hey guys, I'm Danny Casey, New York Weightlifting Academy.
What's up, guys? I'm Bryant from Gryphon Strength Barbell.
Welcome everybody. This is No Traps, No Glory, the second iteration. I'm Danny Casey from New York Weightlifting Academy, my good friend.
Bryant Eilenberg from Gryphon Strength Barbell.
So we've come together to revive the podcast No Traps, No Glory that I started and bring our minds together. Brian and I are great friends, and we want to really come and give you guys really insight into our brains, insight into our minds, and everything that we apply to our weightlifting. So as two of the biggest teams in the state of New York, we just thought it'd be something really good to be able to give insight, what we think, what we do, how we operate, opinions that we have on all things related to weightlifting, because ultimately, I think that's what you people want to hear about.
Yeah, both coaches of the year, too. 2024, 2025.
Congratulations on that, by the way. So, and no better person to hand pass the torch on to than this gentleman right here.
Yeah, it's fun.
So, this is actually so now for you guys who are watching, this is actually the second time that we're filming the inaugural episode. And as we were discussing off air, we're actually very happy about that because for myself, we went through it. We had a good dialogue. And then we realized that the camera didn't record any of it, so maybe
we're weightlifting coaches.
Yeah, we have our expertise, and it's within the scope. But the good thing about it is actually it was a good dry run, and it got me thinking a little bit more about how we can structure the podcast, a little bit better application of ideas, because obviously there's so many podcasts out there these days. Everyone's putting out, it's like programs, it's like Instagram, it's like everything. You want to put out information, you want to give audiences things that are different, that are unique, that are helpful. And markets get saturated very quick. So originally, when myself and the venerable Mr. Producer, who I'm sure we'll have on the show yet again, started No Traps, No Glory, the whole premise of it was to really expound upon weightlifting related to life and the philosophy behind it. So when we did our first show, we just kind of discussed, went over how we built the team, how we went about doing certain things. But I think we're actually kind of missing a very poignant but salient layering and foundation, and that is the philosophy that serves as a bedrock for how we operate. So that being said, as in some of the earlier iterations of No Traps, No Glory, we give a lot of long monologues on whatever the topic may have been. I forget how we came up with it, whatever the topics may have been at the time. So what we were looking to do and look to give everybody here is our philosophies on how we run our teams, how we coach, how we program, how we deal with athletes, how we run our businesses, mistakes that we made. And I can really say, and this is why I think we're doing it together, based upon especially too many different or multiple different just circumstances that we've had with each other, being friends, going about navigating our teams, is really the integrity and the integrity there from the philosophies that we operate on. So that being said, I mean, I guess we can get right into this episode. And being that we're talking about with philosophy going into what we did last time, so there have been many times over the years where Brian and I have communicated with each other over athletes and so forth, and Brian, I will always say, and to his credit, and it's much appreciated, has always had a very deep-rooted integrity. So let's say I've had some of athletes of mine over the years who have reached out to him looking for some guidance or looking for training. And Brian would reach out to me and just let me know what was going on and everything. And that's something that's you don't often see. Actually, he's the only person I've ever experienced it with. So I think that speaks volumes about the character, about the person that you are, about the coach that you are. So that being said, I guess to kind of take a broad question, hopefully condense it a little bit, what is your underlying philosophy? How did you come out with such an approach? How do you apply it? And I know it's multi-tiered, but let's say in terms of having that type of integrity, obviously there's a philosophy behind it. So what is your philosophy in terms of how you approach your team and how you approach dealing with others?
So I think like as far as like my philosophy, how we approach our athletes is we try to create a structure and a learning environment. Got the Guinness. Got the Guinness. Structure and a learning environment that allows the athletes to grow and learn about themselves as they grow. So we can't always be there all the time, whether it's in person or remote. So I want to get an athlete smart enough and intelligent enough to be able to make the corrections on their own when possible. But as far as like my coaching, like, you know, when you talked about how we talked about athletes joining and stuff, I think it all starts with respect. I want my athletes to give me respect. So if I'm not, one, returning that respect, but if I'm not giving respect to the other coaches around me, the other people around me, whether it's parents bringing their kids to the gym or fellow coaches, then I feel like I'm hypocritical.
Okay.
Right? Like the athletes will see that and see that I'm trying to poach them from another team or trying to, you know, not be respectful to other coaches or other teams or even judges at the meets. They'll see that and they'll think that that's okay, and they'll think that that's my personality or my integrity, and kind of, you know, frown upon it eventually. You know, when it comes down to it. So that's where I feel like I try to keep that as my rule. Like, rules keep us in line. I think rules and laws are good for everybody. So that's my rule. It's just give everyone the respect that I want to be given in return. So whether it's, like you said, an athlete joining my team or joining your team, or giving the respect to an athlete telling me they're joining another team, you know, just giving everyone respect all around. It's just the way I like to do things, for sure.
I like that. I've long had, and I've mentioned this in many previous shows, where I've always, this is not my original saying, but I've heard many times, it's how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah.
And it's really something, it's obviously something that stuck with me. It's a very simple statement, but something that really resonates in the sense of its application. And for me, it's application across any and all level, because let's say how you treat others, how you treat yourself, how you approach training, how you approach every aspect of your life is based upon that. It really comes down to, I mean, I guess you could say I've adopted that as a philosophy that I apply to training, apply to myself, apply to everything, because with it, and to your point, there's a baseline integrity that applies to that, and that goes to everything. And really, the outcome that I feel the outcome that you get from that is far greater.
Oh yeah.
Because I mean, if you're not, the greater intensity that you put towards doing something to better the outcome and do it without any sort of contradiction, you're going to allow yourself to produce results that no matter what, someone can look at you and be like, you know what, that guy's stand up solid. I trust him. I respect him. You know what, no matter what happens, this is someone who I can operate with and who I can do a podcast with.
Yeah. And like it rubs off on your team, and your team needs to have standards. So if the coach, the leader is respecting other coaches, other athletes, judges, all the people around weightlifting, then your athletes are going to do the same, and they're going to see that. And I believe in leading by example.
Yes.
So it starts with, you know, that.
How did you? What were some, let's say, earlier experiences that you've had that kind of led to that? So, like, just as an example, let's say for myself, I mean, obviously, you could go on and on and on throughout your upbringing throughout life and formative years. But let's say coming across certain people that have influenced that, you see how they live their lives, how they go about things. What were, may say, some things that have led to where you are now in terms of how you govern your team, how you govern your thought process?
Yeah. So I started, you know, I did all team sports, baseball, football, and all those things. And what's different about weightlifting compared to those other sports is the coach in weightlifting does everything, right? We're the competition coach, we're the, you know, your strength and conditioning coach, we're everything to the athlete. Compared to like football or baseball, your head coach kind of oversees the other coaches, and then the other coaches oversee you, and they're not really programming your strength and conditioning or things like that outside. So seeing like the structure of those team sports, I basically took that structure and everything and tried to apply it to what we do.
Yeah.
And then just multiple coaches over time, just showing like how to be a leader, how to be respectful, you know, respecting your parents, and then, you know, just the upbringing of being with your parents, you know, the butt whoopings you get when you're not being respectful.
You learn quickly.
Yeah, you learn
Oh,
quickly.
man.
So
Yeah.
I feel like all those things combined help me apply it to my team, without the butt whoopings.
Yeah.
Help me apply it to my team and give the standard that we want to see on our team and have them follow that along. And yeah, I think that's how I kind of took it and applied it to weightlifting. Because weightlifting is different. Like I said, we're everything as the coach.
Yeah.
We're the competition guy. We're programming.
Yeah, we
So
wear many hats and fulfill many roles.
yeah, yeah,
Do a lot with.
yeah. You're a therapist sometimes, right? Like
Some.
you're a life coach.
Most guy, yeah.
Yeah. So
Coaching rates are cheap. I'm telling you, they are dirt cheap. Anyone who looks at it ever scoffs at what someone charges, know that you are getting a bargain because for the most part, I'd say 90% of the time, we should be making rates of therapists or more.
yes, yeah, for sure. So just being around sports for so long and how to apply what these organizations I was a part of in baseball or football, took all the things I learned from those sports and then just tried to apply it into weightlifting and having a team, running a business and stuff like that. So.
Did you have any I'm sure probably more than one, but any one particular singular person that was influential on you in that regard, or?
No, I would say like I don't necessarily have one person because I think you can learn things from everybody. You can always take something from somebody, even in your worst experiences.
I agree 100% with that. You literally learn.
Yeah.
You learn something positive from everybody.
Yeah, even in your worst experiences, you learn how to better deal with that experience because the person you dealt with wasn't doing it correctly.
Yeah.
So I don't have like one person. No, I just think all my coaches combined helped mold to what I applied to Gryphon Strength Barbell.
I like that because it's the same thing too, where it's like so many times, like let's say looking back at like a lot of what I was coached early on, it's a matter of you pick like with anybody, there are things that you like and things that you don't like, but even the things that you don't like, you learn just as much, if not more, than the things that you like. Just like winning and losing. Sometimes when you win, you have a great day and just had a great day. That's it. But times where you lose or have bad lifts or a bad training session, you can learn more from that because of how you adapt to that. And let's say for myself, going back philosophically, it's
a tough question.
Yeah, it is.
You know, because like I feel like it doesn't have like everyone's looking for that like straight on answer. And I feel like the philosophy of coaching or running a business or you as yourself, you don't have a straight on answer. You kind of take everything and kind of group it into the way you do things. So
it's like when you're a kid and you have Play-Doh, it's all different. You have little scraps and you mix them all together. You get
all the different colors.
Yeah, it's one big mix. I agree with that because that's really a lot of my, let's say, weightlifting coaching philosophy has turned into that and it's been distilled down from ideas from everywhere. So many experiences and across the board. And it's interesting in that regard because it's almost two tiers where you have like a baseline, your personal foundational philosophy, and then how that applies to, let's say, your training philosophy. And it is a tough question because as I asked you that, I'm trying to think about like, what would mine be? Like, what I think? And I really can't think of any one particular person.
You've had one coach for your weightlifting, right? Before, did you have multiple?
I technically I've had two.
Okay.
So the first person that coached me, Harold Gilchinsky, he's actually a very roundabout, ironic way that I end up getting in touch with him and him coaching me. He was when he first started coaching me, he was my first introduction to actually coach weightlifting. And he even professed he wasn't really the best or most knowledgeable in weightlifting. He was more strongman, powerlifting oriented. He did a lot of, he was more active in like 80s and 90s, but he's familiar with lifting. And it's interesting because, let's say, he was my first coach, and later on I went on to find Mark Chasnoff and trained with Mark for a number of years. But reflecting back, there was so much more, looking back in hindsight, so much more that Harold offered that he didn't realize he was offering that I learned from him in terms of his honesty with the level of knowledge that he had, the honesty and the application of what he did know, what he did know was actually also incredibly helpful training-wise. It was just kind of as we were discussing earlier before we were recording, in terms of, let's say, like a strength and conditioning background or an empirical background versus an anecdotal background. Yeah, his anecdotal background for training from a lifetime of lifting weights and working out, he's given just some absolute gems of, let's say, just and simple things to do.
And it really starts with like the personality and the life experiences when you start a weightlifting team, right?
Yeah.
Like we eventually learn programming. We might know a little bit, but we eventually learn programming. But I feel like the coaching and like how you run your team starts with the life experiences you've had previous.
100%, and that's really what's led me to where I am now. So, let's say to take Harold, then later on training with Mark, and I mean Mark taught me a ton of great things, and then there was also a lot that I didn't like that I still incorporate in the sense of
The opposite.
Yeah, it's really the opposite, and as I'm finding by doing the opposite, I mean to say it's actually more successful doing the opposite. Um, and with that, these are all lessons and points that I apply to people. And kind of going to your point, this goes even to earlier what you were saying in the show in terms of essentially encouraging athletes to be autonomous and to learn what they're doing, apply themselves to what they're doing, because they need it. We're not them. We don't know what they're feeling, what they're experiencing. But it's like, all right, tell us, how can we help you more? And working into that.
Yep.
And having that, let's say, and again, all this goes back to comment. We should really record everything that we say off air too, because it's equally just as valuable as this loosely scripted podcast. But it goes back to, as an athlete, there's so much. Coaches will give you everything. They'll give you as much as they can. But what you have to understand is that it's really up to you to how you apply it, and the way you apply it to yourself is going to only help you and only help your coach. Now, how this comes around to philosophy, to not really get lost with it, is that with every philosophy, there needs to be a baseline, a baseline of complete honesty. And something that I had always followed is, I mean, and this is a somewhat unpopular view amongst many, but let's say in terms of actual philosophers and such, to quote Ayn Rand and her objectivist philosophy, it really comes down to, like, where is there a contradiction, or is there a contradiction? And if something's contradicting itself, you need to check the premise. And what that means is, if there's a contradiction, there really can't be a contradiction. And it exists, yes, but the person either means one or the other. You can't do two things at the same time, because it's dishonest for them.
Yep.
And it's the honesty of the application. So being honest with your athletes, being honest with yourself, okay, and constantly checking your premise. Am I contradicting what I'm trying to get forth? That's really the ultimate guideline to, okay, how am I going to make this person better? What am I doing for myself? What am I saying to them? Am I listening to them? And that's essentially the compass that I'll use.
Yeah, that's why I think like having your rules, having your standards when you first start a team or start a weightlifting business or coaching, having those things to help guide where you're trying to go, right?
Yeah,
like
it's
having those things to help guide, because if it goes against those things, then you lose track, right?
Yeah.
If you have those standards and you're applying those standards, whether it's from running your business to coaching to your programming, if you're applying those standards, then you'll never lose track.
Yeah.
And every athlete joining your team or everyone coming into your business knows that that's how you do things, right?
I like that, and again, that's the integrity of you texting me at times and being like, hey, this is what's up, and that's something that's greatly appreciated, and that's why we're here.
Having friends keep you in line, right? Like we've talked even outside of whether it was an athlete or programming.
Yeah,
we've talked business, we've talked friendships, we've talked a lot. So having a friend that helps, like, hey, I think that goes against what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Having someone to be honest with you always helps.
Yeah, it really does, because a lot of times, especially like as we were saying the last time here, where it's just, the natural ebbs and flows of, you're like, I don't know what this month is going to do. Maybe I'm just, forget this. I'm gonna shut everything down and do something entirely different. But when you get emotional, and this actually really applies wonderfully to training, because as you know, when someone gets emotional or you get emotional in your training, you really get clouded in terms of what you're doing. Okay, it's like, whatever's driving you to get that point of frustration, whether it just is mislifts or something outside creeping into your life, or something outside of your life that's creeping into your training. And that's the objectivity where it's like, okay, you know what? I got to like just let me get back to baseline, back to rules. How does my coach help me? How am I going to apply this to where I can, steadfast and be able to be okay? I got to focus on what I'm doing to be able to get results. What's my baseline?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's, it's something that, especially nowadays, like as I was saying before about my first coach, Harold, is that like reflect back on so many little things that he said. I've only with him for a short time, per se, in the grand scheme of my career. But again, these lessons were just like, they were just tried and true. It's just like, this is straightforward. This is how it is. This is what you do. And he's been kind enough that he always said, it's like, I've taught you everything I know. I have taught you everything that I know, and you've took that, you've ran with it, and you've improved upon it. And he's like, that's the sign of me doing a good job.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's actually a very good thing, because I mean, there have been other instances that I've experienced where, let's say the coach that I had would not say that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't say that at all. In fact, it would be the complete opposite. This is denigrate what I'm doing. So, for us, we try to put out a lot of positivity for the athletes, what we're doing. So that being said, going back to what you were saying earlier, because it's something I always try to instill in people. So with giving athletes autonomy.
Yeah.
So when we, as we did on our first trial run of No Traps, No Glory, we were talking about how we built our weightlifting teams. Tell me more about, so when you try to do the same thing, where you try to actually encourage the athletes to be autonomous?
Yeah.
Doing?
Well, one of the things I always ask an athlete frequently is, how'd that feel? Or what'd you feel?
Mm-hmm.
And then usually, like, the athlete will tell you how they feel. Let's say it wasn't correct, or it wasn't exactly the problem. I'd be like, all right, well, we're seeing this.
Yeah.
Did you feel that? And if they say no, we're like, all right, look out for that next time. Or let's say, when an athlete sends a video and they're like, oh, I felt like I was pushing with my legs more, and then you watch the video and they were.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh yeah, you're correct. Like, giving that, just because they said I pushed with my legs more and it takes away your coaching from that athlete, doesn't mean you have to look for something else.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't mean you have to be like, well, no. Like, if they got it correct, you tell them they got it correct, because it's going to help them understand the feeling that you're trying to give them, understand the feeling that they're trying to get in the lift, let's say. So,
don't lose your train of thought. But I love that you said that, because that is literally the same thing that I try to get across to everybody. Is one, it's like, constantly praising when something's done right.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I'll get athletes asking me, well, what I do wrong or this, that. It's like, no, don't worry about the wrong. You did this right. Focus on that, lean into that, because everything in lifting is about a feeling.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you about technique, I can tell about your knee. Yeah. And it's about learning what that feels like more than anything else.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, I think some coaches, why like a lot of coaches don't get that, especially I would say like beginner coaches, is because they're trying to prove their worth. Right? So you're getting paid for a service. The athlete's paying you for that service. So let's say the athlete says, I pushed with my legs better, and that's correct. The athlete might be like you said, like, well, what else did I do? What other thing did I do wrong?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily something we have to tell them, right? Like, you did the thing correct. Good job. Let's go on to the next lift.
Yeah.
Because they feel like they have to do that, because that's what they're paying for. They feel like they're paying you for the correction.
Okay.
Right? And if they got the correction right, well, what's the other correction that I need? And then for coaches, especially earlier on, I feel like they have to prove their worth, so they're going to give you other things that you did wrong or other improvements we need to do, but not emphasize the thing that you said you felt and did correctly, right? Because they're trying to prove their worth in a business sense of things, where we're getting paid for our service, right?
You have to provide something.
I have to provide something, and if I don't provide something, or this athlete gets too experienced or too knowing of their technique and stuff, they're going to leave. Now I just lost mine. And I don't think that's necessarily a thing that coaches have to think about, because if your athlete's growing, they should understand technique. Right? They should understand coaching. I even say all the way to the programming. Like, if I get asked a question about programming, why they're doing something, what's the rep scheme, hey, can you send me the spreadsheet and this and that, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Because I want them to learn the programming aspect of things and why they're doing it, so they understand this is how I'm supposed to feel at this time. This is
Yeah.
why I'm doing this and this and that. So like a more autonomous athlete, I feel progresses a lot quicker than somebody that is just always looking for you to give them the answers.
100%. And it's twofold, actually. Literally last night, I was telling someone that, in jest, obviously, because I like to play around. But I just said, listen, they made a correction, did something. I see, it felt good for them. Like, see, I know everything. I didn't. But then to follow it up with it, whatever I don't know, I'll admit that I don't know it, and then I'll try to find the answer for you. And to that point, it's like I constantly want athletes to be able to learn what they're doing, feel what they're doing, and I'll happily explain. So let's say you guys online, and you've probably seen too, where it's like I'm big on using plates, like plate drills for doing things. So I had one lifter, she was having her do the plate drill. We just warm up weights and such. And then she was just asking about her foot position, asking if I'm going to start changing her foot position and so forth. I was like, no, not at all. Like, listen, this is why I'm doing the drill for you. I want you to be able to get. I'm looking for X, Y, and Z, and I want you to be able to feel that. Because of the nature of the plates, your feet are going to be a little different because they just have to be in order to get what I'm going at. Yes, but it's not going to be this way permanently. I'm looking for something down the line, not right immediately at the start. And I approach the same way. I encourage all my athletes to constantly ask. You want to know why? Please ask me why. I'll happily tell you my reasoning, my motivations. You can tell me if you disagree or you don't think it's going to be good. And if you do disagree, or think it's not going to be helpful, then tell me, because I do the same thing where I'll happily, okay, then we'll nix that. We'll cut that out. Yeah. Or let's say, for whatever reason, remove something that we haven't done in a while, but it's helpful. Come back around and start putting that back in.
Yeah, I just think like, coming from like baseball and football, all the better athletes, you know what's going on, what every position is doing, whether you're a quarterback or safety or whatever. You know every position on the field and what they're supposed to do. If you're playing baseball, you're guessing from your history of what pitch is coming, why it's coming, when it's going to come, why they're going to target this area. Like, you know everything on the field, and those are the smarter players in those sports. So my goal is to build smarter weightlifters so that they can progress quicker. It's not about needing me. I don't want to be needed. I want you to progress. Your goal is this. That's my goal to get you to that goal. I don't need you to need me.
And that actually is a great point, which circles around really nicely in terms of, as I was saying, my philosophy, objectivist philosophy, is that really to build a successful weightlifter and make an autonomous weightlifter and go down to a philosophical baseline that actually produces results in every aspect of your life is learning how to be objective to what you're doing as opposed to the emotional aspect. Because and think about anything that you do in your life. Once you get emotional about something, you get frustrated. How many times do you send a text message to someone that you're arguing with, and then afterwards you're like, oh man, I really wish I'd done said it. Yeah. If you would have waited, been more rational about it, you could have thought about it. And it's the same thing with training, because the amount of times, especially beginner lifters, and I know my career too, where you'd be like, where you'd have just meltdowns. The amount of holes that are in the walls over here for me having meltdowns. But relative to how I am now, it's like if you approach it objectively, look at the long-term goal, what's the plan, what's the philosophy that we're trying to abide by. It's okay. I'm trying to teach you how to feel what you're doing and work towards something over a course of time. If you have it that day, great. If you don't have it that day, okay, you know what? I can easily move on from there. But to become a more autonomous lifter and become more objective to your training, because ultimately that's going to be a far more sound philosophy for producing results.
I feel like when I was my best at weightlifting, and I'm sure like every weightlifter can attest for this, when they're the best at their weightlifting, they know like what they did wrong without even looking at the video.
Yeah, you could feel it. You could feel it, and that's the biggest thing. Because let's say in my earlier days, I didn't know what I was doing, and even so, in terms of not knowing what I'm doing, I should elaborate more. I didn't know exactly what I was trying to feel, and that led to a lot of errors going down the line because I thought I was trying to feel something. I was being advised on one, and it wasn't working out. Or the times where it's like, okay, you know what? This is all I got today. Like I know right here, this number I'm at is capped out. Then I'd be told to go up because I look okay, and then all of a sudden it turns into Misfest 5,000. It's just okay. These are the things you got to be able to get across.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, my refreshment is coming to me. So, in terms too of let's say philosophies, both of us have built our weightlifting communities out of that. And I think, I'm sure, same for you as time goes on, our philosophy sharpens, we become more aware of what we're doing, and we're able to apply that even better. As we were discussing a little bit earlier, in terms of, let's say, the athletes that we have, for you, when you have people come into the gym, I mean, it's kind of tough because you're going to get people coming in. Do you find that there are those who come in that don't necessarily follow or are readily agreeable to the philosophy that you have? And are there difficulties? And then if so, how do you address that?
Yeah, I had this discussion on the New York podcast,
Yeah.
kind of right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So
which you guys should go check out. Check out the New York WSO podcast, where James McDermott interviewed Bryant for the for Coach of the Year. You should all check that out. It was a good listen, so highly recommend you guys do it.
Yeah, so you're gonna get people in, whether it's from previous sports background or just usually the people you get in that are just flat out beginners. They usually fall in line pretty quick because they understand coming in that they hired you because of what you do.
And the nice thing is that they have no understanding of anything else. The only thing, this is their first introduction.
Yes.
Actually, and again, not to get off on a tangent, hold that thought. The best thing as a weightlifting coach, I think, is to really be rooted in what you're doing, know what you're doing, be honest about what you're doing. Because when you get beginners coming in, the first 3 months of their training is going to affect the rest of their life. So the better you can give them a good introduction is going to have a better shape, development, everything for them as a lifter, whether they're with you or not, for the outcome. Okay, glad you were.
Yeah, for sure. So honestly, is probably where I'm going. When you get a weightlifter in, and if they have a background in weightlifting or other sports, those tend to be not difficult, but those tend to be the people that you might see not fall in line right now. Because they've had previous experience or knowledge on how things are done. And like you were saying, just being honest, right up, this is how I do things, this is why I do things, this is what we're going to do. And then, if they're, I would say, combative to that, then that's when you have a discussion like, you hired me because I'm the best at what I do, or I'm the best in this area at what I do. And understand that with that comes the way I do things. And usually most people fall in line, right? Most people will fall in line, understand the vibe of the gym, and fall in line with that. And then your beginners right away pretty much come in line. And I always say, beginners and your word of mouth people are the best people to get. Word of mouth people are coming to you because their friends at your gym and talks about you all the time. So they know what to expect.
And there's a reason that you're being talked about for them to come in.
And then the beginners, they're coming to you because they want knowledge in the sport, and you're the first coach they went to. So whatever you say, they're taking it. Right? But the people with experience are the ones that will kind of challenge you a little bit, and whether they do or don't, but they might challenge you a little bit. And those are the people that you have to be open and honest. This is why I do things. This is why, I have the banners on the wall. This is why I was coach of the year. Whatever your way of doing that. This is why I brought this athlete here, this and that. So whatever your way of getting them to understand why you do things is most important. We were talking about philosophies and building philosophies, but I coached with a guy who, when we coached middle school, and he always told me, you're going to get parents that come up to you and ask you why your kid's not playing. And he always told us, be brutally honest. Be brutally honest. Your kid's not playing because he doesn't tackle. Well, do you teach him tackling? Yeah, I teach him tackling, but there's a will to want to do it. And I can't give him that will to want to do it. Right? I teach the snatch doesn't mean they're going to want to go under it. Right? So being open and honest right away, right off the bat, and not beating around the bush to what you're trying to get is the best way to do it. Because you negate any down the road issues, or you negate any combative issues throughout where they're trying to go.
Why am I not making progress?
You negate all that stuff if you just flat out say, this is how I do things, this is why I do things, and this is what happens because of the way I do things. And sometimes giving people examples, especially if they're coming from a sport, they want to see the examples, right? Why are you the best? Why are you a weightlifting coach? What have you done? So they want to see those examples, and usually those things help.
Yeah.
And if they don't, like we talked about it on the New York WSO podcast, if they don't, it's okay to ask them to leave.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it is.
it's you're better off avoiding anything that can happen that makes it worse than worrying about losing your $100 or losing that good athlete.
Yeah.
You're better off keeping what you're trying to do and not have the challenges of an athlete challenging you all the time, because that can, one, that can get contagious.
Yeah.
Or two, that can make other lifters who've been with you long enough kind of not like that athlete, because they know what you're about and they have a emotional connection to you.
Yeah.
Because of that.
And so to build on that too, like I say all the time, the best athletes are the ones that take no effort to work with.
Yeah.
The hardest athletes or the least receptive athletes are the ones where you feel exhausted after working with them.
Yeah.
And also too, the ones that exhaust you are the ones that kill the entirety of the environment, and everyone else essentially becomes to resent because it takes the time of the coach away, because it distracts them incessantly for no reason.
Yeah.
And they're a buzzkill to the environment. And it doesn't matter how good they are, it doesn't matter what potential they may have. Someone like that is not worth it, because ultimately, it's from a coaching standpoint, it's good it's multi-tiered, because one, how we deal with it. And usually in instances that I've had like that, where I finally asked the person, okay, you know what, not asked, but where I said, you know, I think you need to train somewhere else. You don't really belong here. It shows that you have integrity, and everyone that is under you that believes in you, they get emboldened by your doing that.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what, all right, yeah, that's the leadership that I want. That, okay, he's sticking to the principles, he's following through on this.
Standards.
Yeah, standards, and this is the philosophy that he's abiding by. Where here's someone who comes in who just, whatever the reason, whatever their causes, motivations, this one's aberrant to the entirety of what we're trying to do, and they're gone now because they were taking away and they were detracting from us. Good, that's something that we can believe in, and ultimately that really it shows that the bedrock philosophy that you operate off of, it holds true, and you have standards. As opposed to constantly, you know what, I want this $100 or something like that.
Yeah, because like you said, like contradicting those standards becomes like a collision. Like if you're not sticking by those standards, then you know your athletes are going to see that.
Yeah,
I think we've had it happen a couple times maybe, and whether it was a personality issue or it was, you know, we felt like the athlete wasn't believing in what we were trying to do, programming or coaching wise, like just having that conversation quick. You know, it's a tough conversation to have, but you have to have tough conversations in anything you do. And when I was first in weightlifting and coaching weightlifting, running a business, I was worried when I did it that, you know, you're going to lose money and that athlete's going to tell everybody about you or whatever bad things about you, and then you're going to lose a bunch of athletes. And I will tell you, it's never worked out that way.
No.
I think most people will respect the honesty up front, and it always works out better for your team and your environment that you're trying to build, because atmosphere is number one. In a gym, atmosphere is the number one thing you have to build.
100%.
It works out better for your team to just have that tough conversation. And I think it was a little easier for me because I've seen those tough conversations coming from college sports and competitive team sports where, like, you know, you got to cut this guy or you got to ask this guy to leave because his grades aren't good. And even if it was a good player, you're sitting back like, that's our best player. Why is he getting rid of him? Who cares about his grades? But deep down, like, you know, if you don't have the grades or you're not sticking to the standards told to you by your coaches or your team, then all those other things are gonna, you know, go wayside.
Yeah, it's 100% true, and that goes again, as you said it earlier on in the episode. Excuse me. Where really how you do anything is how you do everything. That conducts every aspect of your life. And I've had over the years, I'm sure it's the exact same for you. You have lifters who, let's just say, whatever limitations they may have physically are made up by how headstrong they are and how determined they are. And they're willing to just, okay, you know what, this is where I'm at, this is what I got to do. I'm willing to accept difficult things. I'm willing to work through them. That's someone you can easily work with. And a lot of times when you operate on that level, those people end up actually becoming more successful than, let's say, the very gifted athlete who's just wavering or just not following through on things that need to be done, out of questioning, contradicting.
Yeah.
And those are the things that don't essentially work in terms of long-term success. I mean, I know, and I try to stress that all the time. And I guess really for, let's say, in this show, I mean, to meld everything together, it's really you. If and this goes to everyone listening, you have to ask yourself, who are you and what are you trying to do? Where do you stand? What is your foundation philosophy? And how does that apply? It comes down.
Then how's your personality apply to those things?
100.
Right? You can't choose a philosophy or these standards if your personality doesn't align with those things.
Yeah.
So everything you do, needs to align. So when you start your team, understand who you are as a person, and then create those standards and those rules and what you're trying to do off of that.
Yeah, that
For sure.
you could not say that any better.
Yeah.
And for every athlete, for all of you who are athletes listening, ask yourself the same thing. Like, who am I? How does who I am apply to my training? How does that apply to my relationship with my coach? Am I maximizing it? Am I contradicting myself?
Choosing a coach.
Yeah, well, that's actually
choosing a coach. Be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
When choosing a coach, because it's the same thing. Like, we don't always choose our athletes.
No.
Right? Like, they're coming into our gym and we're coaching them, so we don't choose our athletes. So we might have to have those tough conversations or those tough decisions to make if that athlete aligns with what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
But as an athlete, you choose your coach.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you're choosing who you go to. So, whether it's having that initial phone call with that coach that you might be choosing, or and understanding yourself before you have that phone call with that coach, and making those decisions will help the whole process in the end, because you don't want to choose a coach that doesn't align with what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And it also helps that coach to not have to make the tough decisions of, this athlete's not trying to align with what I'm trying to do, and I got to ask this person to leave. So
Yeah.
it avoids everything. I think, on the athlete side of things, athletes can be not the best at choosing coaches.
Yeah.
And I think like that should start with your personality, and then having these phone calls with these coaches. Not just choosing a coach because they coach somebody that's good, or they coach your friend or stuff like that. Choose the right coach by understanding yourself and then having a conversation with that coach.
It's funny because when last summer, I guess it was, I forget the exact timeline. Last summer when I had the Chinese weightlifting coaches here doing the seminar, we were just talking, and the main gentleman who was heading it, we were just discussing something, and he was talking about just business and how often do let's say athlete turnover come about. He just kind of made jokingly just saying how Americans have no loyalty, and they're constantly, they'll be training for a month, 2 months, and then that's it, and they find a new coach. And to that point, it's just a matter of, we don't get to choose who comes in. But when those people come in, we apply our principles, we apply our methodology, we apply everything that's within our four walls to what we to that athlete, to how we think we can make them the most successful. Yeah. And when choosing a coach, I mean, you really have to be objective and, okay, like, what are you actually coming here for? So let's just say the people that I've asked to leave or suggested that they train elsewhere, their goals weren't aligned with actual training. Their goals were aligned more with just psychological issues they had or something like that, where it's like it's completely misaligned to our philosophy. So you want to come in, I can give you everything related to training. I can make improvements with you, whatever you want to do. I'm not here to help resolve any issues that you have with your parents or pre-existing things like that. So these are something where it's, as I said a moment ago, where it's like, you got to, who are you and what are you looking for? What do you stand for? What are your goals? And how do you really apply to that? Because if you're using weightlifting as a crutch for other aspects of your life, you're going to be wasting your time and everybody else's time.
Yeah, and that, like we said earlier, like, atmosphere is the number one thing we need to try to build as coaches, as gym owners. Mm-hmm. In the gym, atmosphere applies to the community and the friendships and stuff like that. So, like, you get that person in, and this is going to sound harsh, but if cancer starts off small.
Yeah, it does.
And then it grows, right? And that athlete can kill an atmosphere very quickly. And you might not see it because it happens slowly over time, right? But then when you ask that athlete to leave, or whatever it is, that person to leave, it could be another coach that's helping you. Ask that person to leave, that cancer goes away quick, and that atmosphere is back very quick.
And the thing with that too is because initially you have the one person comes in, okay, see if they fit into the environment. If they do, okay, they end up falling in, great. But the ones that don't, they keep going. Then the other athletes start getting, oh, this guy's here or this person's here, great, and they're annoyed by it.
Yep.
But then eventually the annoyance turns from the person to the coach because okay, you know what? I'm really tired of coming here because the coach isn't doing anything about it. So if you hold true to your principles, hold true to your foundations, get to the point where, okay, you recognize that cancer quickly, like prostate cancer. Supposedly, as I'm told by my physician wife, that prostate cancer is the most easily curable cancer, I guess, if you get it early type of thing.
Okay.
So you get in there, get a little tickle, and then you chop that bad boy out. You get rid of that thing. But it really is up to us.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to nip this thing, get it right out.
Yeah.
So that's where holding true to your principles comes in.
For sure. For sure.
So, we hit it all, man.
Yeah, there we
It's
go.
good stuff.
That's episode 1.
Episode 1,
No-
baby. So,
No traps, no glory.
what I will say to everyone listening, you made it this far. Maybe this will make a great little cut at the end or Instagram post. But all athletes, everybody listening, ask yourself who you are and what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
And ultimately, and then I've put this in previous posts up before on my Instagram and everything and so forth. My Instagram. Because especially as my career has gone on, I'm not trying to lift heavy weights anymore. There is a value, no matter what stage you are at, coming in, being focused, training, listening, learning from a coach, no matter what. Because as much as we guide you on lifting, the implicit and the salient themes of how this applies to your life carries through and will forever carry through. Every training session has value. Every training session has something that you can take away from it. So that being said, follow us on Instagram. No Traps, No Glory. Follow Bryant Eilenberg's page, Gryphon Strength. Follow Bryant himself. Follow me, New York Weightlifting. Follow both of our YouTubes because that's where you could find this impeccable and well-crafted
If you
content.
want to see our great faces and not just listen over Spotify,
Yes.
you could go on there and listen to this. And you want to see our faces, watch it on YouTube. You'll see our faces. So,
I mean, I
and
don't know
see the beers we're drinking.
Yeah, I don't know why you guys wouldn't want to just look at us for a long period of time.
Yeah.
All right, brother.
All right, guys.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.